Hello. Decentralizing the Then Now Next International Media Conference 2016. Before anything, I'd like to say that as a settler of Scottish Bayesian descent, I'd like to first acknowledge the Then Now Next International Media Conference taking place in Toronto was actually happening on stolen territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Iroquois people. This will become more relevant as we go on. When I heard the name of the conference, Then, Now, and Next, I thought of this image. This is a picture of the universe from its beginning to end, past, present, and future, all coexisting simultaneously as space-time. This is a pretty new perception of the universe and how our galaxy moves through it. We used to think the Earth evolved around the Sun. It turns out the Earth, the Sun, and the rest of our galaxy is hurtling through space-time at 70,000 kilometers an hour, like this. It's arguable the centralization of your conference is like a heliocentric ritual revolving around the Sun. But according to the new discoveries in physics and astrophysics, the universe isn't heliocentric and we're all moving together, dragging behind the Sun as it speeds through the universe like a comet. This presentation is an engagement with the Media Ecology Association as a means to inform them of the politics of the day, because I looked at the panel discussion and discussion schedule of the conference and none of you were talking about decolonization or colonization. If you think about it, a politicized media ecology or a politicized McLuhan media ecology is anti-colonial, anti-heliocentric, and also anti-dialectic. But to go through with any of this would destroy the centralized model of theory that the media ecology's metaphysics run by. And here's why. The McLuhan School of Media Ecology, as some of you may know, hopefully should, maybe haven't, I'm not sure, heavily influenced by my favorite Irish writer, James Joyce. Okay, McLuhan's books, Understanding Media and the Gutenberg Galaxy, are like The Road to Finnegan's Wake, which is one of Joyce's popular books, his last book he wrote, as McLuhan also said himself. Interestingly enough, Joyce wanted nothing more than the decolonization of Ireland from England, as well as the shattering of Roman Greco metaphysics and to destroy the hold of Christianity on the Western psyche. We'll see how the Christian idea of sin has defined the value of anxiety around the world, because Christianity and the other two religions of the Abrahamic tradition, Islam and Judaism, all deal with sin too. What I'm saying is that the ideas of guilt, right, wrong, sin have been holding the value of anxiety hostage for a very long time. So let's talk about history a bit. Little known fact is that there was no concept of sin in ancient Egypt, in ancient Kemet, which is where the three religions of the Abrahamic tradition got their stories from. This is all documented in this book. Here we have Understanding the African Philosophical Concept Behind the Diagram of the Law of Opposites by Yosef ben Jochannan. So if Joyce was to collapse the Roman Greco metaphysics, it would fall back onto philosophy of the diagram of opposites, naturally, because it came before any of the physics, or, well, yeah, physics, but it came before any of the philosophy or stories. It came after this African, everything came out of Africa, basically, anyways. So if Joyce was to collapse Roman Greco metaphysics, it would fall back onto this, which is why Joyce and Nietzsche have so much in common, because Nietzsche was the first person in nearly 3,000 years to consider what is beyond good and evil, kind of like the Egyptian philosophy of no sin, that good and evil coexisted and were not separate or other. It could be argued this kind of thinking was forgotten in history as a story, but primarily that Greek and Roman cultures gave birth to Western philosophy. This is not true. Jochannan rewrites history and says that Pythagoras and the Ionian philosophers went to Egypt and got the idea of the four elements, earth, wind, air, and fire, that were the foundation of Western philosophy. But they didn't include the other dimension of the diagram, that is the qualities of the elements: dry, wet, hot, and cold. We'll see how this affects the rest of history soon, because they are as the double hermeneutic to, let's say, the single hermeneutic understanding that is just considering the earth, wind, air, and fire. You can read more about that in the essay I will be providing with this. So the history of Western philosophy goes from the Ionian philosophers to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And Eric McLuhan says, "You, I told my class, are Aristotle's problem." In the Anima, Aristotle says that we all think in images. He takes it for granted, but it's not to his liking. He regards thinking in images not as a valuable faculty, but rather as a disability. And that is why he never counts it among the main faculties of the soul. Thinking in images completely inhibits abstract reasoning, which he didn't like. Abstract thinking was essential to philosophy, dialectic. Aristotle had to find a device to circumvent that habit of thinking in images. He found it. It was a syllogism. Aristotle's syllogism constituted a real revolution not only in philosophy but also in making abstract thinking possible. Dialectic, that is logic and philosophy, requires that you develop the capacity to think in words rather than in images. Images are entirely too illogical, too concrete. They do not permit very much in the way of abstraction. As if by magic, Aristotle's syllogism defeats images, freeing the imagination to dance with the ideas and the words. My students, Eric McLuhan says, turn out to be pre-Aristotelian in their sensory lives. Actually, their and our sensibilities nowadays harken back considerably further than that. So we're more like the average person of 4,500 years ago than we are from 45 years ago, let's say. It's a lot of change. That's because, well, we're all coming back to technology, symbols everywhere. I'll get to that in a second, but to add an interesting fact, it's considered that the invention of the phonetic alphabet also gave less power to women and gave rise to the patriarchal society we live in today. It's because the phonetic alphabet was part of the psychological change Aristotle made concrete with the word-dominated syllogism that defeated image-based thinking, which is naturally considered as a feminine quality these days. It is feminine quality, but yes, as we go on, elaborate on that. McLuhan also researches Egyptian hieroglyphics and says that they're the first 3D animations. So that means the Egyptians were already thinking in 4D, and this was possible because they thought in images, not in words. This was illustrated by the diagram of opposites. It's also not a heliocentric metaphysic, and it's more like this video once again. Why are we thinking in images again? Is because we are hypersensitized to the new medias and technologies, all the images and symbols we click on, advertisements everywhere as concrete bits of information we intuitively decode, the fluidity of information being unpacked between hyperlink symbols and data has our mind working like it did before the phonetic alphabet gave rise to the syllogism 2,500 years ago. We're just becoming more efficient thinkers. One thing should be clear, that technology is allowing us to be symbols everywhere. This is how we read things these days. So why am I talking about physics and sin? Well, because all of these early physicists like Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Kepler, they were all obsessed with the metaphor of falling. Galileo didn't really explain how the Earth could move, but he was successful in showing why terrestrial experiments, such as dropping of weights, can neither prove nor disprove the motion of the Earth. This pathology of falling is a heliocentric model and corresponds to the notion of sin as falling, because anxiety, folly, that is sin, is really the physical, or it can be considered as the physical pressure of gravity and electromagnetism when traveling at 70,000 kilometers an hour. I would like to introduce another point and a final point from Eric McLuhan. Why has the media ecology not stepped up to the plate over the matter of terrorism or over the matter of democracy in the Middle East? Media ecology holds keys to destroying the power of the Taliban, he says, and over any other oral tradition or group. And we all know it. You know how to program an environment to produce certain perceptual and cultural effects. All of this too is well known to media ecologists. Time to accomplish, he asks, maybe as little as a generation, and that would be much less expensive than wars that continue for 2 or 3 generations or go on forever as feuds. Or imperialism. This was said by Eric McLuhan in 2007. Well, I'd like to call out Mr. McLuhan for posing a very good question. What would the reaction of this supposed power actually manifest? Decolonization of both knowledge and land as a media priority? Why has media ecology not stepped up to the plate over the matter of colonization or decolonization and decolonization, or over the science of patriarchy, which is what we are talking about right now? In a sense, by ignoring the role of colonialism and by ignoring these physics, the conference is like Galileo. You aren't working together, moving together, thinking about actual strategies. Rather, you aren't proving or disproving anything the Media Ecology Association is capable of, or talking about the actual science behind it, and what it claims to be capable of. Are you an ally or an accomplice abolishing the Allied industrial complex? Who are you really helping, and how are you helping yourself? Lewis Gordon calls out disciplinary decadence of Eurocentric academic work and thinking. It implies the fetishization of method. The heliocentric model you guys are working by is a fetishized method. You aren't proving or disproving anything. Some say that by not doing anything about the problem, by not thinking about the problem, you are taking the side of the oppressor. If this is why you did not accept my paper, what's up? Thank you for your time. Here is some more recommended reading. Have a nice day. Feel free to ask me questions. Word up.